Well, welcome to Walking Your Talk. Get rid of that headshot.
I got to get rid of that headshot.
Get rid of my headshot.
I got to get a new headshot.
Look who it is.
Stella Fox.
Fox.
What a pleasure.
It's lovely to see
So
you.
glad to have you on our show.
I'm glad.
She's a preeminent firecracker.
I saw
Did
that
you
on
see
the
that?
lower third of the screen. I think that's amazing.
She's amazing.
Well, that's great.
Love her.
Absolutely.
I mean, love her in a good way. I say that all the time. I
The
love her in a
first
good way.
preeminent firecracker I've ever met, and looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, me too.
If you get to be a business owner, you
Walking Your Talk. What's it all about, my friend?
Well, it's about people, interviewing people who've gone through things in their lives and have learned lessons by observing other people that they consider role models. And there usually isn't just one, there are usually several. So those turning points, I think, really define us, and that's what we're talking about here
Yeah.
with Stella.
Yeah.
very much so.
And before the program, you were describing a few of those that you've been
Oh,
through.
very much so. My story kind of started my sophomore year in college. My dad gave me a piece of advice when I failed my economics class. And he said that the closer that you get to your goals, the more life is going to throw things in your way. Not because you're not deserving and not because you don't want it and all of these things, but more to test your resolve. Do you want it bad enough to work for it? Do you want it bad enough to hurt for it?
Do you remember, you think of your dad as a role model then when you're describing
yeah.
him? Okay.
I don't know that he would think of himself that way, but I do, most certainly. He's the head of our household. He worked for Texas Instruments for 23 years.
Okay.
And then he went and worked for Peterbilt, and so there was a lot of things in that way. But he was working a lot, and so his work ethic was the thing that really.
That's what essentially inspired you to become, at least in part, the person you are today.
Very much so.
Sure, that's great.
Yeah, and so.
So that throwing things in your way when you're just about to get there. You've had a few of those?
I've had a few of those. So my story, in the heat of the moment, it can be hard to see what it is. What it is.
Yeah.
At the time, I was a week from graduating college. I was up worrying about my mom having a blood transfusion for a surgery that I didn't know she was having, and it was the worst surgery I'd ever heard of. She was supposed to be having 2 little teeny tiny incisions, and it turned into opening her up from her sternum and then down to her knees.
Oh my gosh.
And having stents put in because her arteries were blocked. So I'm worrying about her because, oh my gosh, it's a week before college. Am I going to be burying my mom when I graduate college? And so I'm, pacing the floor and, just distraught about this. And then I was married at the time. My husband, his phone was lit up, and so I'd gone over to turn it off, and that's when I had found out that he had been having an affair for a year.
Okay.
And so I'm graduating college, worrying about my mom, and finding out that,
so your relationship's blowing up, your family is in crisis.
Yeah. And
all this stuff happens.
You're supposed to be
happy.
Graduated from college.
Yeah,
happy moment.
Yeah, and it was a train wreck.
So what you learned from your dad is you have a choice you can make in a moment like that.
Very much so.
Talk about that.
You decide who you're going to be. Either you are going to be defined by the things that happen to you, or you're going to learn from those moments and use those moments as stepping stones to do something different, to be someone different, and use them to either be successful or use them to be an excuse. You get to decide which way it goes. So, and he's not as eloquent as all that. It was,
you added a lot of words to what you learned by watching him. That's okay, and now you're relating that to us, but I think that's great.
Yeah.
So. And that role target, a lot of times, those role models, a lot of times, do not articulate things or advice. Do not articulate that advice in the most eloquent way.
No.
But
sometimes the most direct way.
The most direct way,
And it's the message, you're not always the messenger for the person that you're giving that information to. Sometimes you're the messenger when you don't even know that you're being the messenger. And that was what happened in his case, because here I was, my world was falling apart, and I was kind of catatonic in trying to figure out how to get through this process and what to do next, and oh my God, and what does this mean? And I was watching The Walking Dead, trying to not
Lessons
be in my
learned
life.
from The Walking Dead.
Yeah, not be in my life. And
on that day.
Yeah, and one of the characters was quoting Ovid, and she said, one of these days, this pain will be useful to you. And it reminded me of what my dad had said. And then it was like, oh, well, I'm not going down like that.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
Right.
I'm going to use this. I don't know how it's going to turn into anything. I don't know how I'm going to use this. More to the point, I was concerned, what did I do to you? God, why on earth would you give this to me? What did I do to deserve this?
Right.
And I'm sure everyone feels that way, but that's most certainly how I felt in those given moments. And then it turned into oh, I'm being molded into doing something bigger, doing something better, doing something with my life, and I need these stories, I need this experience in order to make me better later. And it turned out that by being a coach and by being a personal and professional coach, I have compassion that I bring to this. And I don't have an agenda, because your story is your own story, and Lord knows what that looks like when you get to me. And I'm not here to judge it. I'm not here to mess it up. I'm just here to help.
So, what were, sorry, Al, what were the ensuing days like after that all happened, Stella?
You know, I was having to smile for graduation photos. You know, none of my family was there to watch me graduate because they were, you know, at home with my mom. Yeah, taking care of my mom and making sure that she was there. And so I'm smiling, you know, trying to get it to go up to my eyes, trying to look happy, trying to feel happy, and just trying to hold it together. As a matter of fact, when I was getting ready to walk across stage, it was the first shower I'd taken in 5 days. It just...
Oh my.
You had been...
Because I was on my couch, literally catatonic about everything that had happened. It's not beautiful. It's not pretty. It's not put together. You're going to stumble. You're going to have these moments that are going to shape who you are. And it's often going to look like a smoking crater.
It will be. It will. That's it.
And you've got to rise like a phoenix. You've got to rise out of the ashes. You've got to build something different.
People say all the time you look great in that Facebook selfie.
Yeah.
But a photograph, a shutter speed of a typical photograph is a very, very small slice of a human life.
It's a highlight reel. It's not all the prep that got into it, and that's the problem that we have with mass marketing today. We're building these expectations for what life is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Without any regard to what it actually is. And I teach people what life actually is. We remove all of the filters. We remove all of the expectations. We remove all of the conditioning or programming that you've had about what you think it should be or is supposed to be, so that you can be happy in who you are right the second, in this moment right the second, so that you can live your best life right the second. So that way, if you do get hit by a bus, you don't have to regret it.
You don't have to. An awful lot of fighters have come back after 2 bad rounds to win. The trick is you want to make sure that when the bell rings, you're there. You know, you've got to be there for that. You can't sit that out.
No.
So, and that, I think that's a great lesson for everybody. And that informs your, we're talking about resilience here, really, teaching people to be resilient. I think you made a great point. Modern society, especially social media, kind of undermines the whole process of resilience, because it creates those unrealistic expectations.
Very much so. It's not our fault, you know. It is our fault. It's kind of a product of our own making. It's the devil, you know, the devil that we've made. And so it's really important for you to step back. Is this accurate? Is this true? Is this real? Right? If it's not, what's the missing component? What happened? What changed that? And being very analytical about it, being very thoughtful about it, introspective about it, allows us to kind of have a little bit of grace about, that's what happened. We're covering up this crack in the, you know, what we're dealing, or the paint's chipped, or, you know. Nobody gets to where you are without scars. Nobody gets to where you are without having some war stories that go along with it.
Sure.
Your pain is not more important or more valuable than someone else's is. I think that's the problem that we have a lot of the times, is a contempt problem. The belief issue of what we deal with, our beliefs that our pain is more important than somebody else's. That's not entirely true. You know, and
no, it's not.
Getting into it. So
just reading a quote yesterday by a guy named Viktor Frankl, pretty well known, wrote a book. Can't remember the title. It'll come to me, but it was on the whole. He was a concentration camp survivor. Pretty well known. And he said pain is a gas. It's like a gas. You put it in a room and it'll fill the room. No matter how large, how much, or how little of the gas there is. He said, so the pain of a hangnail and the pain of living 2 years in a concentration camp is pain, notwithstanding. Then people interpret it pretty much the same way, no matter how serious it is.
People have a negative connotation about what pain is. Pain is the most accelerated way for growth that there is on the planet, because it's the thing we respond to most efficiently and effectively. When you put your hand on a stove, you'll never touch the hot stove again, because of pain. It's the backwards law, right? And so a lot of this comes into, if we're always looking for positive experiences, that's bad, because we're not able to sustain failure. We're not able to sustain the disappointing times. But if we're always looking for the negative situations and the negative experiences, it actually builds our our tolerance. It builds our resiliency. So that way we are more happy with less. We are more happy with not having to chase the big yacht, the big house, the big, the 20-minute commute by helicopter, right? Like,
Sure.
Or
Right.
for the folks who want to just have a housekeeper and a chef in the house. Not that all of these things aren't attainable, and not that all of these things don't serve a purpose. But if you're searching for these things with the intent to impress someone else versus improving your existence, it's the wrong motivation, and it won't make you happy either.
Yeah. It won't
make
when
you
you have it.
Yeah.
I'm remembering now, the book was called Man's Search for Meaning. And
Yeah.
It was about his experience in
Sure.
the concentration camps
much so.
and how you deal with pain. And his core point is you can make the decision to become a different person at any instant.
Yes.
Everybody has the freedom to change
Very much
based
so.
on the circumstance they're in.
Yes.
This informs your coaching, I guess. So, so if you have a guy who's all like balled up, like Mark Iorio, for example,
Balled up,
and,
sure.
and you're coaching Mark to become more resilient. What is that? Not you in particular, Mark, but
Yeah, I got you.
what is it?
Somebody like Mark.
Yeah, somebody
named
like
Mark.
saying, not at all like Mark, because he's actually a pretty resilient guy. But how do you coach somebody? How do you start an engagement like that?
Their expectation is that they're not perfect, so there's a perfection issue to deal with, right? And there's also the I don't know where to start, so there's the how issue to deal with. I just need you to take one teeny tiny baby step. You don't have to have it all figured out now. You don't have to have the entire book laid out right there with your Gantt chart with all your steps piece by piece. You just have to move 1 inch, centimeter, millimeter from where you're at right now.
Yeah.
Forward.
Yep.
And sometimes there's a belief that for authors, it's not that all your words will be good, but you have to write 200 words a day. You have to write 200 crappy words a day, because it's the 200
You have to
crappy
write.
words.
You have
it's
to
the
write.
activity
If you're not writing,
of moving forward.
then
right?
you're not a writer.
Yeah.
People get paralyzed with the expectation of going in the wrong direction or making the wrong decision, and they get in this feedback loop of, oh my God, I can't do it. Oh my God, I can't get where I need to go.
Yeah.
It's you just have to move forward.
That is such a really good point.
Life
And it's
will
action
decide
that
for
moves you forward.
Right. You
Yeah.
will learn what you will uncover what the next steps are as you go. And the book I'm listening to now, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F, he talks about the fact that your problems will build more problems. Your solving of problems build more problems. And the problems aren't going to change. Warren Buffett's got money problems. The homeless guy's got money problems.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett just has better money problems.
Yeah, he's got different money
It's
problems than
a little
everybody
bit of
else.
gas or a lot of gas, it fills the room no matter what.
Yeah.
So-
Regardless.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk to you more about that instance where you were 22 years old, about to graduate from college. Your dad gives you this advice. You get hit with all this stuff. And, where that turning point occurred in your life, Stella. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, pay some invoices.
Okay,
All right?
good.
And then come back and talk to Stella Fox
I
more.
can't wait.
The
It's exciting.
preeminent firecracker.
Definitely.
Right after a message from our sponsor.
Great.
Shelter dogs aren't broken. They've simply experienced more life. If they were human, we would call them wise. They would be the ones with tales to tell and stories to write. The ones dealt a bad hand who responded with courage. Do not pity a shelter dog. Adopt one.
Say we've got grit, and we'll take it as a compliment. Because it's our uncommon drive, our spark within, that brings us together and sets us apart. We are temple made. And when others take shortcuts, when others take breaks, when others take the easy way, we take charge.
Add us on social media to watch bloopers, behind the scenes footage, previews, and more.
I work 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. So when I'm off the clock, I gotta get stuff done. So when I need a snack, I need something healthy, tasty, and easy to eat. Like wonderful pistachios without the shells. They're protein-powered, delicious, and great on the go. And that's perfect for me. Thanks, Liz. A woman without a lot of time.
Whether you're a gourmet cook or just want to eat like one, visit Rostelli Market Fresh, your home for the freshest, locally sourced ingredients to please everyone who loves great food. Our organic meats, quality seafood, and free-range poultry are cut fresh to order. Chefs create culinary-inspired prep foods made fresh every day, which pair nicely with our vast selection of fine wines and spirits. Choose from handmade pastas, artisan cheeses, organic produce, and grocery items, all from the finest purveyors. Rostelli Market Fresh.
Well, welcome back to Walking Your Talk. It's a good first part of that episode.
Mark Iorio?
I am Mark Iorio.
Cini,
Nice to see you, buddy.
Yeah.
This is Stella Fox. Look at her. She looks
Such a pleasure.
She looks way better than the two of us.
By far.
By far.
Special.
Great story. Great story. So you're 22 years old, right? You're about to graduate from college, and your dad gives you this great piece of advice. You find out that your husband was having an affair for a year, and your mom's in surgery, life-threatening probably, right? At that point,
Sounds pretty serious,
pretty
yeah.
serious surgery. What do you do at that moment, Stella?
You know, I don't know how everyone else dealt with it. I shut down. I had not been in therapy beforehand. I didn't have any coping skills or communication skills. I was literally catatonic, and I can't stress that enough. But that's really how I felt. Everything was numb. I was completely numb. I had no idea everything was a fog, everything was chaotic. Had I eaten that day, I didn't know. Had I showered that day, I didn't know.
Wow.
You know, had I taken care of anything that day. That's what trauma looks like.
Yeah.
That's what survival mode looks like.
Yeah, yeah.
And so kind of going through that process and just being in that space, well, I'm grieving. I'm grieving the death of a whole lot of things. The
Sure.
possibility of losing my mom, the
Yep.
death of a dream of having a happy marriage
Yep.
and what that looks like,
Yep.
the death of any possibility of my graduation being that Hollywood movie moment that you're supposed to have with the trumpets blaring and the
Right.
robes parting,
you're
right?
supposed to have.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah,
that you're
right.
expected, you have this belief
Sure.
that you're going to have. And I was a first generation college graduate.
Sure.
And this was how I was graduating.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez,
Like,
yeah.
come on.
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
and it's not a matter of deserving. It's,
Right.
These are the cards you're dealt, and you've got to play them.
So you got to take that first step, right? And, you know,
Yeah.
kind of moving, as you said earlier, moving
And
forward.
It's not faking it till you make it. That's not what it is.
No.
But, a lot of people get paralyzed with the fear of beginning. They don't know where to start. They don't know which direction to go in. They don't know what they want. And it's important in the moments where you don't know what you want. You're not required to make 9,000 decisions. You're not required to have the big picture. You're only required to move the needle a smidge, an inch, a foot, a mile, whatever you can do in those moments to get you where you're supposed to be. Life will sort yourself out. You will sort yourself. You will find the answers that you need to have
Yeah.
in those moments to move forward.
Yeah.
You don't have to have it all figured out. The future does not come to you all at once, conveniently, thank God.
Yeah.
It comes to you one day at a time.
Yeah.
So you only have to work on that one day at a time and what you're going to do that day.
So how has that that whole episode, how's that impacted your life, one, and then two, the pay it forward portion of this, how has that impacted the people that you touch?
Oh, it's a privilege. To say that pain is a privilege, if you haven't been through it, you don't know how you could possibly be grateful for such moments. I was a victim of an armed robbery earlier in my life, and that also impacted part of my story. But in those moments, they define who you are, and it either makes you a hard person, it makes you somebody that shuts down and closes off and becomes afraid of any change whatsoever, or it becomes the building blocks for how you kind of dictate where you go in your future. And at the time, dear God, why would you give this to me? Why on earth? What did I ever do to you to deserve this?
Right.
Like, oh my God, like I'm a good person. I do good things. Like,
Yeah.
why on earth am I being given this? And you're given these things so that you can grow from them, so that you can help others, serve others by understanding that other people are are in pain and they're dying on the inside, right? And I'm not a therapist. I don't get into that. That's not my strong suit. Therapy takes where you are now and looks backwards to make you okay with where you're at now.
Yeah.
Coaching takes where you're at now and looks to the future and builds your steps forward to the future. There's a little bit of overlap. Obviously, some therapists do a little bit of forward coaching in the short term.
Yep.
And coaches also do a little bit of therapy to get from the back end to get you to move forward, but we don't stay there. That's not what we focus on.
Exactly.
And so having had this hard mileage, this devastating mileage early, it allows me to be more compassionate. It allows me to be more thoughtful. It allows me to be more considerate of the fact that while I do have things that I want you to do to move you to the next level, I also understand that life happens. I understand that chaos happens, trauma happens.
Yeah.
And it's that whole put it to the side, put it in a box, don't look at it, don't touch it, just move forward. It doesn't exist. It doesn't hurt me. That's the wrong answer.
Yeah.
And we have broken people walking around with these big heavy boxes, and they're bumping into other people, causing damage to other people because they haven't unpacked these boxes.
Yeah.
How important is it then in a coaching practice to help people even recognize that they have to let go of something like anger in order to move forward? I mean, you had to let go of a fair amount of anger in the middle of this crisis you went through.
Very much so. Anger is the emotion that hides hurt, right? It blows up red hot as a way to deflect hurt and sadness. And so that's what you learn from therapy if you go down the therapy road. And so knowing that anger is showing up, you have to ask why. Right? And is your anger more important to you than moving forward is? If it is, by all means, I'm not the girl for you. Go on about your day, right?
Sure,
like
move on.
I'm not here to waste my time and effort doing that.
Yeah.
But if you want to stop hurting, if you want to stop being angry, if you want to find a place to put it, I can help in that way because how long do you want to carry that?
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of people, anger is a way of celebrating pain because they really don't want to let go of the pain.
Yeah, well,
anger is a way to make a party out of it.
Yeah,
and
very much so.
You know, and that's definitely a bad way to move forward.
Well, we feel entitled to our pain, right? We feel entitled to our anger. In politics, you see this regularly. You don't actually see intelligent conversation about politics, even from politicians. They're inflaming anger and beliefs because beliefs are our no-win scenario.
Exactly.
We don't win on beliefs. You can't. So it's a never-ending cycle of fuel for anger.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that.
No.
Right. My time on this planet is very limited. I'm not here to waste my time buying into that. Anger is a temporary emotion. All emotions are temporary. Just because they feel accurate and real and true in the given moment, they don't dictate what the futures are. That's what decisions are for. Decisions dictate where the future goes.
How do you handle situations, Stella, with a client who might look at you and they weigh or they have varying degrees of the pain or trauma that they went through in their lives, and they might look at a coach like you and say, "Well, you have no idea what I'm going through
I'm a special snowflake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's no one's ever
can't
gone.
possibly understand.
Right.
I don't mean to make light of that.
I understand.
Sure.
There are many people who suffer from depression and suffer from many issues because they don't feel seen and they don't feel heard and they don't feel validated. We're not talking about those folks. So we're going to put those folks aside. Those are real issues that need to be handled. And with compassion and grace. There are other people who it's the talking point that gets them the most attention.
Got it.
I'm not here to be your best friend. I'm here to show it to you because you're wanting to be a better human being. That's why you said you were coming to me.
Yeah.
Right.
My job's to help you do that. And if you can't look in the mirror and you get mad at me because I'm showing up this mirror that
Telling
you
you
said was
something
important to you,
Right.
It's all permissive. This is all at your pace that you're framing the game. If you're getting mad about this mirror, you got to look at it. That's your problem. So.
Well, you can be honest without being hurtful.
Oh, and that's.
Which I know you do.
That's her jam.
Hopefully that's my jam.
Definitely, no question. But it's sometimes it's a challenge not to feel pain when somebody calls you on your stuff.
Very much so. Well, and if you've never had somebody hold you to in an accountability way that can be uncomfortable and new to you in the very beginning, you'll come to me 6 months later and tell me it's the greatest thing that's ever happened and oh my God, it's changed your life. But it takes a while to get there. If you were surrounded by enablers, if you've always been surrounded by people who stonewall you, everything's fine. The building's not burning down. I don't know why the flames are here, right? Like everything's fine, we're fine. It might be very shocking to hear the information that I have, right?
Yeah.
And it might be uncomfortable and you might be angry and you might not want to continue a relationship with me further.
Do you find yourself giving advice to some of your clients that your dad gave to you?
Oh, yeah, all the
now,
time.
all the time, right?
All the time.
How has that been for you?
Yeah, I'm a humble creature. I try not to get an ego about all the things that I do.
Yeah.
Again, it's not about me, it's about the people that
Sure.
I'm working with.
Yeah.
And so, look, this was useful to me, and this was my story on how I got this information.
Yes.
This is the context in which this information was given to me. It may or might not help you. I'm just trying to help. I'm doing my part, right? I'm doing what I can,
Right.
whatever I can do. Elizabeth Gilbert wrote a book called Big Magic. Most people know her from Eat, Pray, Love. In the book of Big Magic, she talks about the fact that a lot of people are looking for a way to not eat a crap sandwich. And regardless of whatever you do, whether or not it's TV hosting or owning businesses or just being a parent, whatever this looks like, being a human, you're going to eat a crap sandwich. Your function on this planet is to find your favorite flavor, right? Because you're never going to be able to outsource it. You're never going to be able to outsource all the crummy parts of life, of the existence. We're not trying to insulate ourselves from all the information we don't want to have, right? It's a privilege you don't get to have, right? Because then you become the emperor with no clothes. You're just trying to find your favorite flavor of crap sandwich, and then you can eat all of it, right? And then you can tolerate the early mornings, the late nights, the overwhelm, the frustration, because it's worth it, because that's the direction that you're looking to go.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
I mean, what you're really doing is coaching people on how to be adaptable within their own frame of reference. Not you're not teaching people to be like you.
No.
You're teaching
Very much
people to
not.
be better versions of them.
Very much. I'm still working on me. I'm a work in progress. I don't want you to even try to do what I do. It's taken me a very long time to find my place in the world. I'm not about to be convinced I'm mistaken by somebody who doesn't know me as well as I do. I would never assume that I would know the direction of your life better than you do. You are
Right.
the expert of your own story. You're the expert of your own life, your own business, your own dynamic. I'm just trying to help you navigate it in a more sustainable way to where you're not damaging people and you're happier about it.
Which is another good point, Stella, that you made earlier, that you have to own those issues yourself. You can help coach people along, but in order for them to move forward, it's got to be owned by them.
They've got to take
gotta own it.
responsibility.
Yeah.
So there's an argument. Will Smith did a video talking about the difference between accountability and responsibility.
Yeah.
It's not my fault that all of these things are happening, right? But I take ownership of how they impact me. I take ownership of what I decide to do with that information, and I decide whether or not I'm going to either contribute to the problem, period, or
Yeah.
whether or not I'm going to do something about it. And I've chosen the road that's not always easiest.
Yeah. Who's inspiring Stella Fox these days?
Ooh.
Who?
Yeah, there are so many people. I'm constantly looking for things that are motivating and inspiring. Colonel Richardson, we went to his retirement party last night
yeah.
to say farewell as he moves on to his next adventure. And he's the wing commander. And he's just this humble guy. His wife, Melissa, is amazing.
Sweetheart,
and
yeah.
they're just top shelf people,
Yeah.
and they have heart of service. So if you're a kid out there in the ranks just working to help other people, I think you are the most fascinating person on the planet.
That's great.
great.
Well, you've been fascinating.
Well, thank you.
Definitely
We have
a great
enjoyed this,
conversation.
right?
Terrific.
What did I tell you? Is she the preeminent firecracker or what?
And for people out there that may be a little stuck in their lives, you're a coach. They should be reaching out to you.
Very much so.
Maybe you can tell people how to get a hold of you.
I'm on social media, so if you'd like to learn more about me and my company and what I do, I'm on Instagram at Coach Stella Fox, as well as on Facebook as well, and LinkedIn with at Coach Stella Fox. And you can find me at highcalibersolutions.co.
That's caliber with a B.
Caliber with
excellent.
a B.
And you should remember that asking for help isn't a weakness; it's a strength.
Absolutely.
Vulnerability is the strongest thing you can be.
Yeah. Wow.
Stella,
Great, Stella, what a terrific
Thank you.
conversation.
thank you so much. Great day.
Yeah.
Thanks, Al.
What a great time.
That was great.
Heck, it was a total pleasure for me.
All right, we'll see you next week on Walking Your Talk. Have a wonderful and safe week, everyone. We'll see you then on RVN-TV. It's RVN-TV.
RVN-TV, right.
RVN-TV.
Thank you.